what it means to be black. Standing out in a white space. Why am I here? To be black is the most beautiful death I know. For every day I'm chipped away until I become numb to my power and my insecurities. Hashtag deep. Hi y'all. That was it. So I realized that I actually sent an incorrect bio. I'm actually a senior, not a rising senior. But it's cool, no worries. It's cool. Unless y'all want me to stay at 5th year, I mean, that's perfectly fine. So I go by Pope or some Pope. People like the Youth and Girls Rock Charleston like to call me just Pope. One of the youth wanted to have lunch with me, and one of the organizers was like, well, we have to go with you, with like all of you, we have to sit there too. And the young person was like, no, just Pope. So that's kind of where some Pope came along. So I wrote that poem in navigating many white spaces and being the only black person in a space. So that was kind of like came from a very interesting mindset. I was sitting in a coffee shop, and one of the young men who sell palmetto roses was trying to get water. So he rolled up to the cashier and was like, hey, can I get some water? And the person working was like, oh, that'll be $1. And he was like, no, I mean like free water. Can I get like free water? And he's like, free water is for customers, so I can't serve you here. And the young man proceeded to walk out. And I was the only black person sitting in there. And in shock, I didn't know how to intervene in that situation. So I sat down and wrote what y'all just heard. So I'm gonna read another one entitled Black Dot. So this is also coming from being the only black dot in a classroom. So I wrote this in my philosophy class, and I obviously wasn't paying attention. So, Black dot, you are the end all and be all of a statement, the last thing people see before the end. Black dot, they see you and exploit you, confining you to one role, making you last and taking you for granted. You are nothing to them. Black dot, you stand out against the whiteness on this page. You are powerful, singular, alone. But black dot, collectively, you, black dot, can be one of many. In the paper, this mass white space can be inked and covered. Connect the dots. Black dots go forth and create an ellipses, dot, 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 pause. The statement and create uncertainty, the end. Period. Drop it down, drop the mic. I can't do that to 80 people, we mad if I drop the mic. Okay, so I don't know if any of you heard, but Senator Lee Bright in upstate, oh, thank you for the booze. Booze for her, not me. Senator Lee Bright proposed a bill that would further promote fear in the trans community here in our state of South Carolina, basically telling them that they cannot go to the bathroom of which they identify. I read this piece back in Spirit Day. I really only ever read it in the fall when we have our Transgender Day of Remembrance, where we uplift the names of trans people who have died in the year. But I'm going to read it now because I feel like it's just needed in the moment that we're in, with all of the right wing kind of pushing back against the progress that we are trying to make in the South. So this is a love letter to the Black, queer, and trans community. For so long, our community has been cast to the shadows of what is the gay rights movement, usually known as the gay rights movement. Society is so quick to pat themselves on the back and be happy about marriage equality, yet we fail to acknowledge the fact that 6 trans women, most of them being trans women of color, have been victims to violence this year alone. But you, my Black, queer, trans family, I see you, and I see a history of resilience against violence and bullying. I see you and I'm happy you exist and live in the world, even if the world continues to erase us and minimize us. To you all, my black queer family, I see a lens of power. This power drums and echoes in my being, and I'm never alone. To the black, femme black man, the butch lesbian woman, the non-binary trans person, I see you, and I open my heart to you and all that you are. Black queer folk, you are gorgeous and you belong in this world. Your life matters to me and countless others. We should challenge our fellow queer family to think about not only people and individuals who bully us, but systems that bully us. How police systems, prison systems, education systems bully black, queer, and trans bodies. If the Charleston community truly wants to fight for liberation for all, we need to be critical about the rhetoric that Charleston is united, strong, and better than Ferguson and Baltimore. You can go to as many events as you want, but it takes us organizing and struggling together to create positive social change. Actions are much more powerful than words will ever be. If white and non-black queer folks truly believe that Black Lives Matter, how is that being acted on? I challenge each and every one of us to take the first step towards racial justice and queer liberation so that we can keep marching to that drum, build up our troops, and fight until each and every one of our hearts screams the songs of liberation so that everyone can sing. Thank you. Office of Sustainability for giving me the space to do this. Appreciate it. Thanks.
I was born on April 23rd, 1974 in Atlanta, Georgia. I am what Southerners will call a true Georgia peach. I have two older siblings. My mother is Japanese and my father is African American. However, I did not always see color or race when I was a little girl. For a while, I would argue with my father that I was white. I did not know what it meant to be a biracial child. I did not understand that my mother was from another country. All I could relate to was skin color, and her skin color looked the same as a Caucasian. My dad would always ask me what race I thought he was. I would innocently reply, "You are black." He would then question me that if I believed that my mother was white and that he was black, then what did that make me? My response was, white. I could not understand how that made my mother and father feel until I was in high school. I was denying my parents their legacy by blotting them out and making myself something that I wasn't. I did this for many years. Once my parents got a divorce, my brother and I went to live with my father because my mother was not able to take care of us by herself. My father moved us to the suburbs to a predominantly white neighborhood. And by predominantly white, we were the only black family. Not to mention that I would be the 14th black student in a predominantly white school. Well, this is where my rude awakening happened. I could not make any friends to save my life. Neither group of kids would talk to me. The irony about this story is that the black and white kids actually agreed on one thing, that I was not welcomed in either crowd because of my skin color. How fucked up is that? This is when I began to realize that there is really something different about me and I needed to figure it out. The one day that I began to embrace my African American side, I had to cuss a girl out because she told me that her parents did not allow her to spend the night over her parents would not allow her to spend the night over a black person's house, and that she could not understand how my friend's parents would allow her to stay with me. I remember so clearly what I said to her like it was yesterday. And I quote, "Bitch, bitch, who the fuck are you talking to? I don't give a fuck what your parents think. I did not invite your ass over to my house in the first place, so fuck you." This is also the moment that I realized that cussing was an outlet for me to get out my frustration. It was a liberating moment for me in so many ways. Fast forward about 2 years and I'm now in another school that is at least 90% African American. I knew that I had embraced my blackness, but I still was denying who my mother was. I was honest if I was asked, but for the most part, I only claimed to be black. This is when I got my second wake-up call about who I was. I was in school and I got into trouble. Long story short, I was in the principal's office and my father shows up. I was sitting in the office and the principal began to look at me in a confused way. Clearly, she could not see the resemblance. I was getting really pissed, and I really wanted to ask her what the fuck was she looking at. But then she said, "Mr. Winston, here is your daughter's write-up, and she is being suspended." My dad proceeds to grab the paper and did not even try to read it. He just passed it to me. So I began to grab the paper and I read it. This lady wrote that my nationality was Hispanic. I looked at her in the same fashion as she looked at us, and then I leaned forward and said, "Excuse me, I'm not Hispanic." So she grabbed the paper and looked at me and said, "Filipino?" I said, "No." Then she said, "Hawaiian?" So I leaned forward and I said with an attitude, "Do I look Hawaiian?" My daddy grabbed the paper and said, "Does it matter?" That was my wake-up call. Yes, it did matter, but ironically, it did not matter to me until someone got it wrong. At this point, I was going to be recognized as biracial, and I refused for anyone to consider me anything else. By the time I was 13, my father had lost his job and we had moved in with my grandmother. Several months before my 14th birthday, my brother and I were arguing over who the best rapper was between Eazy-E and MC Hammer. My dad was mowing my grandmother's lawn and he came past the window where we were arguing. My father stopped the lawnmower and said, "Get the fuck out, pack your shit, and go." My brother and I figured that he was just pissed off about how loud we were, so we sat down and became quiet. A few minutes later, my father stormed into my grandmother's house and told us again, "Get the fuck out, pack your shit, and go." My brother was over it, so he grabbed his shit and began to pack. I followed behind my brother and I did not know where we were going to go. I had no clue. My brother was my world. He protected me and he was my best friend. If we split up, then what will I do? My brother and I were essentially homeless. My mother could not help us, and my father had abandoned us. We called around to see if any of our friends would take us in. My brother and I went our separate ways. This hardened my heart. I began to build a wall up that I refused to let anyone break down. My best friend's mother took me in for a little over 3 months, and she wanted to adopt me. I told her no. She offered me a good life. I knew that I would be able to attend college and that I would not have to worry about where my next meal would come from. But I had parents. I could not help that they did not seem to want me at the time. 1 week before my 14th birthday, I found out that my mother allowed my brother to move in with her. I asked her if I could move in if I got a job, and she said yes. So I got my first cooking job at Six Flags Over Georgia. All of us lived in a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment for a little over a year. However, as small as it was, it still felt like home. At this point, I began to understand why my mom could not take care of us after her divorce. There were so many things that I did not know, such as my father mentally handicapped my mother by withholding her checks, the physical abuse, the fact that she did not know how to take care of herself financially without him, the affairs that he had, and the fact that he left her with absolutely nothing after the divorce. But as I watched my mother struggle to get out of the mess that he had made of her, I saw a strong woman who refused to let him beat her. My mother became my focal point in everything that I did. I continued to work in food service, although I wanted to be a psychologist. But I did not have the financial means to go to college and I needed to work. My mother played an important role in my chosen career path at this point. She offered to put a word in for me at the hotel that she worked in. I got my first job as a prep cook at the Westin Peachtree Plaza Hotel. 3 months later, I realized that I was pregnant with my first child. Being a prep cook was hard as hell because I was clueless and I hated cooking. My mom's boss told me that he wanted her to train me in all that she knows. I hung in there, but I hated it. One day, one of the chefs walked by me and noticed that I was using a meat slicer incorrectly, and he began to yell at me. Needless to say, I lost my cool. I told him that he could kiss my ass and that there was no way in hell that I would let his ass talk to me as if he had lost his fucking mind. My mom looked at me and hung her head down in shame because everyone in that kitchen heard me cuss him out. I just knew I was about to lose my job, so I prepared myself to be ready for that moment. Instead, the executive chef decided to keep me. The rush that I got over cussing that motherfucker out was huge. As exhilarating as that was, I realized that I had embarrassed my mother. From that moment on, I decided that I would take my job seriously. As time went on, I watched my mother and how she took pride in everything that she made and how everyone in the hotel loved her. I wanted to make her proud of me. I began to really pay attention to her and what she created, and I began to think outside of the box. I became really fucking good at my job. During the '96 Olympics, I became an intricate part of the culinary team in the hotel. We had a new executive chef, and I knew way more shit than I did in '93. However, I was not on the top of the pay scale. I was barely making ends meet, but out of pride, I refused to get assistance from the government. My second goal in life was to never allow anyone to take care of me because I did not want any man to have control over me the way that my father had control over my mother. I watched her struggle and I could not be a part of that cycle. Long story short, I worked my ass off and the chef promoted me to a supervisor. I now had a taste for power. I saw how the chefs walked around the kitchen in their tall hats and clean white uniforms. I was envious. I guess you figured it out that I'm a control freak. In 2000, we had a new executive chef, and she was all about female empowerment. Chef Kim's goal was to seek out powerful females in our kitchen and give them opportunities that they were never going to get being in a male-dominated field. Chef Kim saw something in me and offered to give me a promotion that would make me a chef under the stipulation that I would work on my weaknesses within a month. I jumped at the opportunity. I was nervous as shit because I had never flipped an egg, I had never made an omelet, worked on a line, or made stocks from scratch. I thought that 1 month would be easy because I figured all the chefs would be glad to assist me since they all knew me since I was a little girl. I got that fucking wrong. The male chefs in that fucking kitchen did everything under the fucking sun to sabotage me. They would stand in the corner of the kitchen and watch my shit burn and would not say anything until it was too late. They would talk about me behind my back but smile in my face and wish me all the fucking luck in the world. All those old school, small-minded, chauvinistic motherfuckers wanted me to fail because they thought that a woman could not be a chef, especially on what we would call the savory side of the kitchen. That shit really pissed me off. Now I was determined to be the best. My motivation was to become their boss one day. I placed myself in areas that were out of my comfort zone. I began to seek guidance from other coworkers. I got that damn promotion. Keep in mind that during this exciting year, I was pregnant with my second child. I stayed with the company for about 10 years, but all of those chefs that sabotaged me were not trying to retire. I had no fucking room to grow. In 2002, we got a new executive chef. This guy was mean and fucking short. He did not like females, and he told me that he did not want me as the chef of the restaurant anymore. His vision did not include me. He wanted a celebrity chef. This asshole asked me to assist in another hotel that was in need of an executive chef and that it would only be temporary. So I agreed to go. I did not know that his plan was to try and promote me out so that he could interview people for my position. I guess I fucked up his dream when I did not apply for the job. However, this did not stop him from hiring my replacement. This asshole hired the man who would later become my husband to take my place. This short bastard demoted my ass to a fucking room service chef to make room for his new protege. I began to search for jobs. I asked him to help me obtain a chef's position in Charlotte. He said, okay. I thought he was really going to support me. Instead, he told my mom in front of me that she should apply for the job because he thought she would be better suited for it. Fucking asshole. That is when I made it my mission to find somewhere else to work and develop my skills. I went on count, I could be a total bitch. What I love about working with Chef Herman was the fact that he was never an ass to certain people. He was an ass to everybody. I admired his creativity and his desire to think outside of the box. Chef Herman made a point to push me into uncomfortable situations because he wanted to make me a stronger chef. I ventured off into other job opportunities in 2005. 2 years later, Chef Herman called me to come back as his executive sous chef. I worked for Chef Herman on and off for over 6 years until I got married in 2011. I moved to Charleston after my wedding and became a chef for Aramark at the College of Charleston. During this time, I entered an Aramark competition entitled ACE. It was a mystery basket competition. There were only 28 chefs from the Southeast region competing, and only 3 women were in the competition. I was awarded the silver medal, and I was the only woman to ever place in this competition in the Southeast. Fast forward to 2013, and I received a call from an alumni who was in the midst of recruiting for the show Chopped. She asked me to interview for the show, and the rest is history. My episode aired on June 23rd, 2015. I can honestly say that I was so insecure when I went to New York. I did not feel that I was good enough. I prayed through it all, but through the grace of God, I did not get kicked off first. I did not win, but the incredible exposure that I got from just being a part of the show was priceless. The support that I got from my colleagues and from the campus was overwhelming. I have had so many opportunities that have opened up for me. I received my Pro Chef 2 certification from the Culinary Institute of America. I placed third in a citywide competition that included 10 of Charleston's best chefs. I was a part of the first social justice coffee hour held on campus by Nicole and Masters for women in the workplace. I have been a part of charity events in Charleston and in Atlanta, and I am currently working on my Pro Chef 3 certification. And now I am here telling you my story. In the end of it all, I am extremely blessed and thankful. I realize that all the steps that I have taken in my life has set me up for this very moment. In the end, I am here because of my faith, because of the motherfuckers who told me I couldn't, because of my drive, and because of the people who actually believed in me. I strive to make a way for women in a male-dominated world because of my mother and because of my girls. I will make a difference. Hell, I already fucking started, because I am the first biracial female executive chef on this campus, and I believe that that makes me a badass, and I am pretty damn proud of it.
I'm from where the murder rate is disturbing, but no curb in the crime. Time and time again, you find the swine has a purpose, but trying to protect and serve ain't the one you see him doing. You hear the pistol fire, and it's likely them to shoot. Ain't no police in the police, but at least we all know it. And ain't no dreaming in these streets about being a poet. We owe it all to public schools, where the rules is to show it that you know the answers to the test, but unless it's an oval that you filling in, then the feeling is like swimming and drowning. And black is black. We don't distinguish from cinnamon, brown, and mahogany, onyx, and all of its chronic. So we swallow in tonic and wallow in all in it. See, I find it ironic that this is iconic. It's marketed and you want it, so I sell it with promise. And I can guarantee he's got a bullet and a badge and took an oath to protect and to serve, but just to look, and he's scared of me. And I'm aware that he is, but I wonder, are you? And they ain't telling us to freeze for the open and shoot. I know you think he got degrees, but I'm hopeless as you. Nigga with the PhD, still a nigga when blue lights flash and I match the description. Ain't no mistaking that. Ain't no amount of philosophy spit negating that. Can't quote a book and then hope you out if he's got a badge and he believes that he can choke you out. Hands up, stand up, and they shooting you down. So keep your eyes on your mirror when you cruise through the town. I'm from where the boys in blue don't play. Cough up a lung, where I'm from, USA. Ain't nothing nice. Yeah, so I'm working on a doctoral degree. Yeah, that's not a real thing. You don't have to. But and so like I'm really interested in the way that in the way that words kind of operate in certain spaces, really thinking about how like rap lyrics and spoken word poetry like can do the work of what we call theory. Can I demonstrate that I know something by rapping for you? I think the answer is yes. Anyhow, there've been a lot of things going on in South Carolina since I moved to South Carolina, very recently. Well, I'll say that I got to South Carolina the week that George Zimmerman was acquitted. And so if you can imagine that timeline, I mean, I've been here since. And even on the very happy occasions that I've been able to come here to Charleston, they've been marked by some of these other more atrocious things that we know of. And so I always find that the issues that we have are problems basically rooted in language. And then they extend out to these things that we know to be able to call violence. But I think that the violence actually happens at the level of language. Anyhow, I read this at a rally for a young man who was murdered by police officers. It's called Maybe Metaphors Are Easier. Maybe metaphors are easier because they ask us to think of something unrelated to what we really want to talk about, to actually talk about it. That's something I love about language, but I'm hesitant because there's nothing like what I want to talk about sufficient to make those who don't care and those who do are constantly bombarded with new ways and encouraged to say it so it doesn't sound so much like it is, so it doesn't appear disrespectful or angry or militant. Even the truths we hold to be self-evident search for synonyms and metaphors across time and ways we can make them better understood. All things being equal, if we spoke of fruit picked, plucked too soon from where it grew, to litter the land upon which its life force sits, has roots deep and thick, its very strength a threat in itself begging warnings, perhaps hopes for tall, thin branches. We can understand how strange it might be to watch it lying there, this fruit, and how all of nature might be appalled, not that it was taken, but that it was wasted. If we can imagine ourselves somehow equipped to do something about this type of waste, not only for want not of it, but also for the sake of ripe, old fruit and flowers that fall according to nature's course, and not taken for the sake of some justification that amounts to because it was there and because I could. If we can imagine ourselves so equipped, perhaps rather than it being noteworthy or newsworthy that the new words we sing are to the same old song, which sounds a lot like the one before it, and the chorus comes in on cue with some variation of, you are doing this to you, is not the song we follow along and beat our drums to, but we stop right then in that moment and say, today has to be different for tomorrow to be better. And perhaps we stop asking politely for people to stop picking and plucking and pillaging and plundering and killing and wondering why people are pissed off. And maybe metaphors are no easier because some fruit grows where it's less likely to fall like this, where it's more likely to see maturity, where it won't have to worry about bruising and browning on the ground while its pickers stand around watching the spectacle, so it's difficult to see oneself in such silly figurative speech. If I was better with metaphors, I'd try to explain to the people who insist that all fruit is the same how these particular cases are strange and how it's ultimately vain to proclaim all fruit matters if these few don't. But I can't imagine myself any better equipped with an apt metaphor than we are with solutions to this current issue other than continuing to speak of fruit picked, plucked too soon from where it grew, to litter the land upon which its life force sits, has roots deep and thick, its very strength a threat in itself begging warnings, perhaps hopes for tall, thin branches, so we can understand how strange it is to watch it lying there, this fruit, and how all of nature should be appalled, not that it was taken, but that it was wasted, and maybe that it takes us talking about fruit to even begin talking about us. I'm gonna try this just to see if y'all can follow me, so you have to listen quickly, if that's cool. I'm saying you have to turn the speed up when you're listening because I won't slow the words down, so you have to listen faster. Does that make sense? Okay, whatever. Okay, so when they ask for it, I never tell them no, I let it go. I put a pen to the pad, it's an effervescent flow. I definitely know I'm a product of the era I was brought up in. Competition, it's a lot of them for fun. I might have mentioned guns as a shorty for retention. That's not to say they wasn't in my area, but listen, my competition, they never wanted me dead, they wanted decapitation. They saw that I was ahead. Heard that I told tales, knew that I do it well, Sisyphusian descriptions, I live in my own hell. It's populated by heat that a hand make flip a coin, no matter how it lands. Where you're going is through the alleyways, back blocks, tenements, where if you don't call a girl a bitch, he's a gentleman. Misogyny is expected, Sodom and Gomorrah, scary movie mind state, the problem ain't the horror. See, in the movies we die in the first scene, so we're all really Drew Barrymore in the first screen. Only it's set in Harlem, maybe it's in Detroit, the audience praise you, don't turn around, this ain't the voice. You fall as you running to get away, felonious metaphor, you do a year in a day. Or die trying, lie silent, it's crack infested, surrounded by thirst, it's Rock Island. From 217 to 309, we open our rhyme books up and bleed on lines. Hope for some recognition to cheat on dimes. Ladies like changing faces and we don't mind. At bars over your head like a snatch lift. Dope boy antithesis, rhyme with a backflip, flip back one chapter, finish the exposition. It's juice on the roof. I'm standing right next to Bishop. You guys seen Juice before? It's juice on the roof. I'm standing right next to Bishop. Raheem's dead and still got shot. We all know how the story ends. Still I watch. Excited to see the violence. Destined to see it through. It's kind of funny. Back in school I pledged. I'm a Q. Grew up in the era of ass whoopings, switches, belts, knuckles from mad looking, bus transfers, bummy and bad looking, lunchtime ciphers, dice, get cash tooken, C-style A-dot. We're kind of the same guy. We're Aries and Virgo, but we should have been Gemini. Because since shorties, it was just him and I, talking more shit than a little bit. Ignorant. Wasn't all good, but I choose how to remember it. I mention it because he sent me a track for me to spit to it. It was 9-7 Cannabis. My jaw dropped listening. Nobody spit like he did, and it's been a minute since I had inspiration, so I listen closely. I wonder what I say in conversations with the old me. Stop drinking. Pig is a filthy animal. If an elephant's in the room, then you should be Hannibal. Scribble down in your notebook all you can manage to. Wait 10 years, then publish that as the manual. Alright, that's my time. Thank you all.
I don't have time for this piece, but I felt inspired to write it. The experiences that I described kind of towards the end are all experiences that friends or people I've known have experienced and expressed to me, and I believe they should be acknowledged. And yeah, so I promise I'm so much more eloquent in writing. But yes, awesome. My partner and I were sitting in a local dessert cafe last month with an older white gentleman sitting at the table next to ours outside of us. He engaged with us in small talk, asking about where we were from, what we were studying, our plans for the future. Amicable, light-hearted conversation while we each waited for a slice of pie. We asked about his children and what part of Ohio he was visiting from. A detail he volunteered about himself that was no surprise to Charleston area natives like ourselves. The conversation began to dissipate, and right before he turned back to his companions, he gave us a cheery smile and said, "You guys look really good together. You make a great pair. I hope you grow up, get married, and have a lot of kids on the way." My partner and I beamed at one another, ducked our heads as Mother Modesty had taught us, and thanked the gentleman profusely. As he turned away, the curtain came down between our table and his, and I smiled shyly at my partner, taking his hand in mine. I dwelled on that experience for the rest of the night and for many days thereafter. The intensity of the affirmation I felt because of the stranger's words could not be matched. For months I had been challenging my peers to stop using my wardrobe and the length of my hair to inform their unnecessary assumptions of whether or not I was attracted to men or women. Because we all know that bisexuality is a phase, a myth, or an act of rebellion. Pansexuality just means you're attracted to pans, and queer is not a word used at the dinner table. For months I had been hoping to meet someone who would like me for me. Androgynous appearance, timid demeanor, disregard for gender roles and all. For me, the stranger's words represented a much-awaited victory over these battles I've been fighting daily with a society that I felt hadn't quite stepped out of the dark ages, where all women dress for the attention of men, and to do otherwise is a challenge to the heteropatriarchal system we hold dearly. But most importantly, the stranger's words culminated a truth that I was attempting to hide from myself out of my own shame. I passed as heterosexual. The stranger perceived me as such and treated me with the decency and legitimacy that is often awarded to heterosexual individuals and heterosexual couples. I glowed at this realization and extinguished my shame, feeling accepted, although it had been artificially and slightly deceitful. But I'm not here to talk about passing. I'm here to talk about privilege. Something most of you wouldn't know about me is that I was in a long-term, serious, same-sex relationship for 2 rather formative years of my life, long before I met my current partner. And from the very start of the relationship that I shared with this girl, we grappled with disparaging remarks from our family members, uncomfortable looks from classmates and strangers alike, and the rampant, internalized homophobia that I struggled with for a great deal of our time together. It was an experience with a myriad of truths about myself that I will never ignore, and one that I often compare my current relationship to when I'm trying to ensure that I'll get things right a second time. The moment that I discovered the privilege I queen for my current relationship, a relationship I should mention, built between two cisgender, white, middle-class individuals, was a combination of two feelings. On one hand, it felt as if I had made a magnificent discovery of a tool that would grant me accessibility to places, strata, and comfort that I would not have reached otherwise. On the other hand, it felt as if I was unexpectedly awarded a first-class ticket to privileged paradise. I remember thinking to myself, wow, that man would not have made that comment if I was with my previous partner. And although I definitely still fear that my relationship will one day be considered illegitimate in the eyes of my peers, all because I am not feminine enough, which perhaps could merely be a phantom pain following the unwarranted amputation of my dignity all those years ago, it is an undisputable fact that I hold privilege because I'm a white, cisgender middle-class man in a different sex relationship with a white, cisgender middle-class man. Had any of these cross-sections of my identity or my partner's identity been different, I believe there could have been a significantly different interaction between that stranger and ourselves, or no interaction at all. It was because our outward identities aligned just perfectly, just puritanically, just presumptively, that this stranger felt the need to congratulate us on our compatibility and give us a gold star. With this harsh but necessary realization in mind, I began to think of the couples I know who are regarded as easy to splinter. How it seems that the fidelity of a woman is automatically considered malleable if she is of color and or if she loves another woman. I thought of the countless men who love to physically force their bodies between the woman and her partner, as if she is unclaimed land and he is the colonizer, ready to dictate her as his own. I thought of how autonomy, the right to one's body, space, and intellect for these women, is a constant struggle against the white heteropatriarchy that sees them nothing more as sex objects. I thought of the men and women I know that must look twice over their shoulders when holding hands in public, that their partnership does not bring tight-lipped complaisance on society's end, but rather lividness. I thought of the trans men and women I know who are fighting to be seen as real men and women, who are fighting to appear in public with their partners without society doubting their identities. I thought of the women of color I know who are not trusted in grocery stores by employees unless their white husbands are with them. I thought of the women of color who are shamed for marrying white folks, shamed for using love as an act of revolution. I came across a heterosexual privilege checklist adapted from Peggy McIntosh's white privilege checklist, detailing instances where a heterosexual person experiences privileges that are not awarded to non-heterosexual folks. While I'm not strictly heterosexual, the fact that I'm in a different sex relationship grants me many of these privileges. This one stood out to me above the rest. I can choose to not think politically about my sexual orientation. I'll go ahead and amend that too. I can choose to not think politically about the fact that I'm in a different sex relationship. But I want to challenge this privilege that I have. There's a quote that I recently heard by Ruby D that says, "Lord, make me so uncomfortable that I will do the very thing that I fear." My privilege causes me great discomfort, and I have been so afraid to speak up, but I'm ready to do it now. It's 2016 and everyone speaks of wanting unity between the races, but when black lips kiss white in holy matrimony, nearly 6 decades after loving the Virginia invalidated laws prohibiting interracial marriage, society at large still does not approve. It's like society said, you can legalize it, but that doesn't mean I have to like it. And in the same vein, it's been nearly a year after Obergefell v. Hodges guaranteed same-sex couples the fundamental right to marry, but it's no surprise that in states like Indiana, Georgia, and North Carolina, there are laws that still discriminate against LGBTQ folks. This is a conversation I want to keep having. I want other privileged folks to realize that it is possible to turn their discomfort into action. Love is our revolution, and love is our end goal.
Hi, my name is Anjali. I'm a junior at the college. I'm a musician. My name is Diaspora. So I was invited here by my friend Colleen. I thought, I didn't know how I was going to fit into this act, so I thought that maybe I could do something different than I usually do in my performances, which I usually play and then yell at the crowd and stir some stuff up, but I'm just gonna you know, be a little softer with y'all. I know you really want to be here and listen to my feelings, so I'm going to appreciate that. Sometimes they don't. And I'm just going to talk about why I wrote some of the stuff that I did and why I'm a musician. So I'm going to start with that first. First of all, I named my project Diaspora A because I thought it might be easier for people to pronounce, but sadly that's not the case. Yeah, I was like always worried how they were going to say my name on stage before I started going by something. I'm a little less worried at college, but sometimes not. The actual word diaspora, it's an academic term. I was reading a lot about feminist South Asian American women writers. I was reading their papers and essays, and I was feeling really motivated by them because it was like the first time I had ever really read something that resonated with me exactly like as I was. So I kept seeing that word. The word actually means an immigrant population, so like a population that all moved and migrated up to another place. I've actually found that that's happened quite a few times in my family's recent history. My parents are immigrants, I'm first generation American, and my parents, some of which moved from like Africa to Europe, and Europe to America, and India to America, so several things going on in there, and I wanted to delve into it. Why am I a performer? I perform, y'all haven't even seen me perform yet. Y'all are like, is she rude? But I perform, I love performing because I think it's really cool that I get to say whatever I want to say, and y'all can only clap for it and not ask me any questions that I don't want to answer. There are a lot of times I've grown up in my childhood and I got asked so many questions that I didn't want to answer over and over again, and so I'm glad to be in a space where I can just say what I want to say and nothing else. So yeah, thank you so much for providing that for me, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, that one is a new song that I wrote. I'm still working on it now, but I thought I would show it like really raw. I'm coming up with an album in June, so you might hear a change or two. But that song is Consumer Zoom. I'm taking actually, my friend Kaylee's here from class, taking a race, gender, and the environment class. And I've been thinking a lot about the intersections and like my like environmental impact and like the life that I like, you know, social sustainability, like the concept of a healthy society and a healthy community. And I guess like the concept of consume and resume is like me trying to express how like I can just live, and then all of the damage that I just did, I don't really like I'm not really required to go fix that. I just like keep moving forward. And I think that it just sucks that like our society is so fast paced that like sometimes people think that they don't have time to do that. Like maybe if there was an oil spill, they don't have time to clean that up because they have other stuff to do. If they just said something that was really racially insensitive, they can honestly just wake up the next day and feel okay about it. So I think that that's where that was really deriving from, just like a little frustration and just the, you know, moving on and not fixing what you just did. So yeah, that was it. Didn't say you would just come back to bed. Baby, you don't know yet, but we're already dead. Change the world before it changes you. And boy, you have so much time. But right now I'm fine. It's that I'm wanting to try. It won't really matter when we die. It's that I'm waiting to try. This is me in my bedroom recording. Just so you know. Damn, frustrate your voice is so loud. I think I need my space. Don't take those words out my mouth. Leave me alone for a little while. Close the door all the way. I need some more time. I said I'm wanting to try. It won't really matter when we die. I said I'm waiting to try. It won't really matter when we die. Tell me, what do you want from me? What do you want from me? Tell me, tell me. What do you want from me? What do you want from me? So yeah, this one's called Migrations. I recently wrote about it. Pope was telling me like, play some new songs, so I made sure to play some new stuff. And yeah, it took me quite a while to write. A lot of my music comes from when I get fired up from when people say like rude shit to me, and then I go home and then I take it out and I hope that and it eventually calms me down in the music that I pair it with. It's kind of like an acceptance and like a reflection of like what I've been intaking and like an output of it. Migrations is a lot about people's confusion on who I am, and how people's questioning me all the time kind of made me always unclear about where I was really from. I was born in Tennessee. A lot of people are when they hear about it, but it's true. And but at the same time, I think my parents and a lot of Indian American people would like to claim that we are from India and that's okay, and being I didn't have to deny. I guess what I'm trying to say is I was always frustrated when people would call me an immigrant, and I didn't know why. And it was because I thought that being from the United States would make me better than being an immigrant, because being an immigrant is looked down upon. Does that make sense? To people. So I guess I wanted to just be someone that was just like everybody else in the classroom, and that's what I came to realize in college is being normative, being white, hetero, cis, etc. So able-bodied, etc. So that's what the song is about, and I hope you like it.
to a lot of poetry stuff. I help host an event, and you never know what you're going to hear, but it's always something you kind of need to hear, and I think that's really important. And I don't know how that works. Like the universe is just like, here you go, and it's just like, nice, thank you. You show up, and then you get like something really important. So some other things about me. So I'm Derek. I live on Cannon Street, and I'm white. And on Cannon Street used to be a pretty like predominantly black street some years ago. And the college Charleston, which is in like a predominantly black town, which is Charleston, is also predominantly white. Isn't that like weird? Right? So weird. How'd that happen? Well, we know some things. But like I'm always like kind of negotiating. I feel like kind of who I am in this space, because like I think a lot of times like I come to spaces, like poetry spaces, and I'm angry, and I think it's really important to be upset or sad in these spaces. Like I don't understand people who can like look at someone being killed and be like, why do you have to be like angry about it? Like fuck like being respectable about how you engage with other people, because that doesn't like determine your ability to speak or your worthiness to speak. But on the other hand, you have to kind of negotiate the harm that you're doing in a community. And so I remember like moving into Cannon Street and then thinking like, okay, like now I'm part of this gentrification of Charleston. Like what do I do about that? Like how do I not live in the street? Like I don't know. So I wrote this poem. This isn't gentrification, but I wanted to just say something about it and about my feelings about it. For our first assignment, the poetry professor asks us to walk through Charleston and write about what we see. Though one girl quips, don't go to that one part of town, everyone laughs, a distilled discomfort. We know where she means, just across town, gunshots on America Street and heroin needles littered in the parks. She means the way white children whisper ghetto, which means a hell they must not suffer, which means black, which means a hell we must not suffer. When we talk about the East Side, we meant new ways not to talk about the East Side, assuming everyone knows what we mean. The persistent image of poor corner store shootouts, deluge of drug dealers, a sea of stereotypes alive in white imaginations. I walk through the East Side and write what I see. Nothing familiar. Here, violence and crime is seen as cancer and white neighbors the only cure. A generation before gentrification, this was a black neighborhood, but the corner store became Whole Foods. We're getting to like Whole Foods downtown, right? It's fucked up. Anyways. The fried fish stand became an ironic street cart serving Atlantic delicacies. The jazz joint became a vegan restaurant. Hot chicken became artisanal spicy deluxe. Your mother's house became a hipster dive bar. All the faces became white. The new faces, they say, this neighborhood is so much better now. Safer, cleaner. The white faces are wrecking ball, obliterating a past they would rather not think about. East Side became a ghost, black as chalkboard, scrubbed clean of myths and past mistakes. East Side became a body, black and dead, a familiar image persistent, a chalk outline imprinted upon the fractured and holy asphalt. Look at the bricks on the buildings of old Charleston and you will see thumbprints of hands of slaves who built this. Look at the bills of Confederate currency and you will see bloody thumbprints of hands of slaves who built this. On the corner of Hanover and Harris, a white boy mumbles along to a rap song, a beat burgeoning under his blistered tongue, the sound, a relic of things stolen and returned unwhole, land and bodies and culture. The music rises, a quiet evening fizzling without applause, and you can still see the imprints of those who built this. But here, black pain sounds real good coming from a white mouth. Just ask Elvis Presley how well he fit into Big Mama Thornton's rock and roll heels. This ain't no healing prayer. This a bad translation of a Bible verse, or eviction notice, or suicide note for a neighborhood. When I finish my walk, I return to Cannon Street. Used to be, this place was changing too. The residences on my street today, populated by college students, Temporary conquerors of a history they preferred not to remember. The barbershop became a bead jewelry store. The bodega became a frozen yogurt parlor, $4.50 for a scoop of farm fresh organic lavender chocolate Ascii bliss. Look at the hands that built this. And isn't guilt too a type of renewal? A modern home where a haunted house is burned down? A whisper at the hipster bar, two white faces close, eclipsing each other like moons. Just look how we made this neighborhood so much better. So I've been thinking a lot about these bathroom bills that have been passed, and they're like really terrifying because like I don't want people I love being hurt. And it's so crazy that like some dude who like knows nothing about like trans issues can then make decisions that could hurt other people. You know? And I'm like, that's really fucking terrifying. And I really, Lee Bright, man, that guy. He was like, wasn't he the same guy who was like, Alison Bechdel was basically like Hitler? Like, it wasn't the same guy, like, Lee, you know, right?
Yeah.
You guys remember this? But like, he said some shit, and now he's like, anyways. But I was thinking about like, you know, one of the big problems in Charleston, in the South, and there's some awesome organizations working against this, is kind of the shrinking of queer spaces. Because, you know, it totally sucks to be queer, like in Charleston, in the South in general. So people leave. And then, like, these, you know, there'll be kids, like, if you're queer growing up, you're non-binary growing up, you're trans, if you're gay, you grow up, and there's no, like, there's not adults, like, who are, like, gay adults or queer adults who are living kind of healthy lives. They're either moved away or dead. And you're like, wow, so I can't survive this. Like, that's the message that's kind of sent in a lot of, especially rural places. But I mean, Charleston too. I remember I talked to my roommate, who's this black queer woman, and she said, like, yeah, no, I'm moving away from Charleston as soon as possible, like, as soon as possible. And like, I can't fault her for that. But I think that I was like, okay, so when I was a kid, who were like, you know, queer people in, you know, in my town that I knew, and there was really no one. We actually lived across the street from this lovely lesbian couple, but I didn't know it when I was a kid because my parents were like, they're gal pals, you know, they're just friends. They like living together for 20 and 30 years, and I was like, oh, totally. Well, like, now I'm like, oh, I was totally like, but like, I remember I was like, okay, so what was like my first interaction or like, you know, as an adult? It wasn't an adult, it was a cartoon character. I remember watching Powerpuff Girls. You guys know Powerpuff Girls?
Yeah.
Alright, so this poem relies on the fact that you guys know Powerpuff Girls, okay? And if not, in Powerpuff Girls, there's a character named Him. And Him is like, non-binary, wears a dress, has high heels, and, you know, in a lot of children's cartoons, like, none of the good guys are ever queer. Well, today some are, which is super awesome. Steven Universe, check it out, guys. Like, you know, back in the day, like, always the villains were kind of queer. That's called queerhood. So I was like, you know, Him is always trying to, like, destroy stuff and try to, like, fuck up shit for the rest of the people. And I thought, like, why is Him so angry? That's so mean. But then, like, things like the bathroom bill happened, and you're like, yeah, okay, I could see, like, you know, raising a city, or, you know, like, being angry, and this is in defense of Him. The evilest of evils, the cruelest of cruel, king of darkness. That's his full title, though. He uses he, his pronouns. I looked it up for this. Snap crab claws. Call yourself tough as bones. Flaunt exoskeleton ego. Brown and painted, pretty as any powder puff. I came here to tell you that you're not alone. You're not the only devil in Prada. You're not the only sister they named Serpent. But how else to code queer except as lipstick Satan? Otherwise not here at all, erased from children's television in fear the young ones might get the wrong idea. Don't you know you're the wrong idea, the wrong body, the wrong pronouns, the wrong bathroom, the wrong city? Do they look at your body and see anything other than ugly, than monster, than evil who will corrupt their children? Your voice sounds masculine only when you're enraged, when the Powerpuff Girls save the town again, when you must return underground unseen. Do they not know your power? You balance anger on tongue's tip like a kitchen knife. When you blush red as rage, does your body suddenly belong to you? And why not give them what they asked for? Why not tear everything apart, stripping reality with burlesque seduction? Fuck being respectable. Fuck being what they want. Fuck fitting in. Why not become chaotic evil if they would paint your high femme as villainy? Him, they call you because they are too afraid to say your true name. Isn't that a common story? One our sisters have told again and again. Let them hear that sound. One you alone own. Let their chaos be. Show them what ruin you can bring in high heels and cocktail dress. When your reign in a hellish realm transforms you into their grotesque perception of nightmare, will you tell them, this isn't even my final form? Sweet, sweet hymn. Slip into a blood-red jacket, dear. Style your goatee into a perfect curl. Ruffle pink tulle. Straighten your hemline. Zip up those black spiked boots. Show them you're no man nor woman. You are a force to be reckoned with. Show them something new. Confuse the shit out of their straight-laced lust. Drive them mad with longing. Put on your war paint, darling. The heroes have come to misname you. The heroes have arrived to define you. Show the world the chaos a fallen angel can wield.
I can't breathe. The smoke is everywhere.
I can't breathe.
The smoke is everywhere.
I can't breathe.
Niggerfagggot. 2 words with 2 G's spread hate like a disease. The smoke is everywhere.
I can't breathe.
It only took one arm to squeeze the life out of an unarmed man. The only thing in his hands were the lifelines embedded in his palms. Now we stand on the front line singing songs of injustice. We are slaves to the melody, and we'll hum the tune while digging graves for another life gone too soon. 2 words with 2 G's spread hate like a disease. The smoke is everywhere.
I can't breathe.
The smoke is everywhere.
I can't breathe.
What kind of world do we live in where women and men have to fight for the right to love? What kind of world do we live in where a private union is a public sin? It's the same world where Charles Manson can easily get a marriage license from jail. Is love for sale? Or is it in the hands of politicians whose lifelines have long since lost their way, whose want for one is greater than the needs of all, taking negative steps on the path toward enlightenment? The math doesn't add up. 2 words with 2 G's spread hate like a disease. The smoke is everywhere.
I can't breathe.
Speaking of math, television promotes division. We are losers in the war for ratings. It's the great divide, and we can't hide from the deception. Be mindful of the way truth is portrayed, or your mind will sway toward a negative perception. But if we open up our hands, we will see that we are united by the lifelines embedded in our palms. Do not deny this connection. 2 words, with 2 G's spread hate like a disease. The smoke is everywhere.
I can't breathe.
This is not a black or white thing. This is a human rights thing. This is not a black or white thing. This is a human rights thing. No more body bags need to become hashtags. Thank you. I feel very blessed to be on the stage and very honored to be here. So thank you all for having me. And it's been awesome. It's been very inspiring. Every time I go to poetry events or spoken word events, super inspired, and I'm going to walk away from this writing a lot. So thank everyone for being here, and thank the audience for your energy as well. I was thinking about language and thinking about this sort of narrative that we all have. So we say black, we say white. We call ourselves these things, and those are, opposites. And really, When you think about it, we are more alike than we are different, but we do focus on our differences a lot. And by we, I mean the media makes this narrative true. So I wrote a poem about that. This is called Mahogany. Who decided to call us black and white? When I look at my skin, I don't see black, I see brown. Brown, like the color of sand, a brilliant tan that needs no sun. Brown, like the mahogany tree bark grounded in the summer, whose green leaves make the transition into fall, coffee stained by the autumn's cool breeze. Who decided to call us black and white? When I look at my wife, I don't see white, I see brown, just a lighter shade than mine. Brown is the cinnamon that colors her iris. Brown are the arms that wrap around me during a bronze sunset. Brown are the layered bricks of our home's foundation. Who decided to call us black and white? When I look at all of you, I see shades of brown. A sea of one color, ripples of love floating along a sea change. There are so many words used to divide us, to fool us into seeing ourselves through foggy lenses. We are more than a box check statistic. We are more than a census. I am not black or white. I am awake. Thank you. I had the crazy task of having to write a poem about the Mother Emanuel shooting. The city paper asked me to write a poem about it. They called me the day after and said that it's due in two days. So I stayed up all night and wrote this poem. It's funny, the first version of it was very angry. I feel like there's still some anger in it. But this is called Black Cloth, and it was inspired by a photo that I saw of Clementa Pinckney, his seat. There was a black cloth on it since he wasn't going to be there anymore. Racism, let us no longer walk in your shoes. You are a traveler of darkness, a walker of shadows, cloaking yourself in a black cloth like the Grim Reaper, and arming your soul with the tools of a terrorist, a misguided soldier who's trying to start a war. Sisters, heaven was as close as your breath that night you came to Mother Emanuel to worship in the glow of God and speak the light that flows from love. How beautiful of him to hear your words and lift you into the arms of Christ. My brothers, you walked toward heaven with focus, even when your shoes were stained with the dirt of intolerance. A black cloth lay silent at Clementa's seat, resting under a single rose. It was taken from our city's soil where seeds of faith continue to grow. Charleston, I see heaven in your tears and feel the weight of sadness in your voice. I've seen strangers hold hands as the sun wraps us in unbearable heat. I've watched children of contradiction come together for the unity of the holy city. But South Carolina, 9 members of your family are now in heaven, and you have to confront the reality of racism, the dusk of pain, the lightlessness of the dawn, because I would rather hang a black cloth on a flagpole than give the Confederate flag another glimpse of the sun. Light poems. All right, one more poem for you all. This poem tries to explain what it's like to grow up as an African American in this city. Not really in the city, in the world, really. And just the reflection that you see of yourself in the media. I'm really big on the way that we are portrayed in the media. So I was always aware that I was less than. You know, there's always one black person in the movie. There's always one, sort of black person in the way that a lot of things are portrayed. So I tried to explain that in this poem. This is called Greater Than or Equal To. I was born the year our country celebrated its 200th birthday. Less than a decade from Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, 113 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. Here's a bicentennial baby obsessed with numbers, released from his mother's womb into a wounded society. He opened his eyes to a binary world where zeros and ones are doing what they can, trying not to feel less than. Some people are unable to process this equation. They focus on division and walk 90 degrees above the ground, forcing you to believe their angle is always right, using money as the height of their worth, never coming down for the common man because they feel greater than. Dear sexism, ageism, racism, homophobia, capitalism, I am subtracting you from my memory's muscle. I am an adult now, and I am tired of diversity being divisive, as the system allows us to shake its hand while pulling us deep in the quicksand. I am trying to reach higher ground instead of feeling less than. Thank you.
I'm Arthur Phillips. I wasn't really nervous before I found out that I was performing after Derek and Marcus. So now I'm kind of shaking. But that was everybody that I've heard so far has been amazing. I had class about 6:45. It was my last lecture of my philosophy capstone, so that was awesome. With that, I missed like the first half, so I was really bummed about that. But yeah, so I'm a Charleston native. I've lived here since I was 2. Kind of grew up here, saw the city change, or have seen the city change over the last 10 years or so. I don't know, none of my poems, or the poems that I'm reading tonight, they're not really about Charleston, but they're really deeply about me. And so they are kind of about some math property that Will has to explain about Charleston. So the first one I'm going to read is called This Poem, My Cocaine. So I used to be a drug addict. I used to do a lot of drugs all the time, day and night. Used to get drunk every night, dropped out of high school. A lot of you don't know that about me. A lot of you think I'm just like, oh, RDP, he's the super cool guy. But I have a really messed up past. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that tonight, and yeah. This poem, my cocaine. Pure, uncut, raw emotion. Cleaner than the cocaine that gets shipped across the ocean, my potion. Oh, no, I meant my poison. I meant to say my poison. I hope you believe me, because it's not magic. Only tragic when I feel the drip down the back of my throat. Well, it's been probably 4 or 5 years, but I can still taste that snotty scum numbing my nose and gums. That's good shit. That pure, uncut, raw emotion that's coming from the motion that I've made to not let my mistakes be in vain, but to say that I didn't stay the same. If my words can warp the mind of even one willing warrior, then not a single sleepless night would be in vain. This poem, my cocaine, it drains me as I pour my sweat and shame onto a page for the purpose of changing the stage for one single player who's losing the game. Please heed my warning. If there's one thing that I can say, it's that this game has no winners. But in the winter, when you feel like that drip will warm your brittle bones, or that hit will help you find your way home, just know that that desire is a lie. That's not truth you're listening to. In the decisions of my youth, I found solidarity among a crowd that didn't dare to see me bettering my life. Sobriety is tiring, but it's inspiring to know that the road I tread isn't walked alone. Down the Via Dolorosa, I'm supposed to keep strong, but sometimes the bomb looks so much better. And sometimes the holy palms in red letters together with salvation's suffering are the only things that keep me free, the blood that was spilled while 2 arms stretched wide open so that chains could be broken. And with one I've awoken to the sweet sound of freedom's bells, with 0 to offer but so much to receive. And the negativity destroyed so that suffering in my own hands could be avoided. And there's only one weight on my shoulders now. That yoke is light and that burden is easy. This poem, my cocaine, pure, uncut, raw emotion. No longer my potion, or my poison. When I was 13, I was dumped into the cold sea on a Christian retreat. I thought of my trip as a vacation and my baptism as a plan for salvation and not the celebration of starting a new relationship and being taken off the sinking ship to find my true lifeboat. A troubled teen found acceptance but not repentance, and my inclusion turned out to be nothing more than an illusion of comfort. And I felt discomfort when faced with facts contrary to the faith that I fought for while I was so misinformed. I remember the day when I was 16 and I said for the first time that my God is not real. From 16 on, I found sequences of sixes etched into my skin and chased after various fixes for the broken heart that I was the executioner to. 16 or 17, I don't really remember. It was a little blurry and my words were usually a little slurry, but I know that unhappiness made its home in my heart. Like a demon, it dwelled inside me and convinced me to hide the things that made me, me. I was a thief and a liar, probably would have been a killer if it became a desire, trying to satisfy the itch in me. I gave into every pleasure and conspired to take the world down with me in a blaze of fire. My family, my friends, you, and I didn't even know you. I hated everyone and everything, especially myself. While searching for sex and serendipity, I found a cell in a self that was seldom, if ever, able to shake the stinging inside of my soul. And the hole that I dug in my heart was hardening and the brittle dirt barely holding. Reaching my angle of repose, I proposed that something had to change. 17 and nothing really happens. I dropped out of high school and became homeless in Miami, and my family had no idea how bad it was. It's funny looking back on it. When I was in Miami, I swore that I was going there to get clean. Well, I'll tell you one thing, that's a dirty city. Flash forward, I came back and convinced everyone that I was better. I even led myself to believe that the thief was no longer there, just someone to be grieved. What a fool I was. Starting college, I didn't care about passing classes, only passing blunts and clearing smoke from glasses, emptying bottles bottoms up, hit the throttle full speed to destruction. Still a thief, a liar, an addict, walking on the wire. Then the tightrope snapped. 18 and experiencing an emotional arrested development and an arrest for a felony, I fell on my knees and cried out to the universe, please save me. Shortly after, I found it frightening that my agnosticism, my spirituality didn't make sense anymore. That when my face was to the floor, it wasn't the universe listening to me. It wasn't a higher power of my own understanding, because I really had no understanding. 18 and I truly heard the good news for the first time in a Facebook message. And for the first time, I felt the fractured scales over my eyes start to fall to the floor. I heard about this man with holes in his sides and hands sitting at the right hand of a God who founded the universe with him as the plan. I found freedom. The chains were gone. The itch was scratched. The thing I had been looking for was mine. But then 19, and it would only take a girl to send me for a whirl. And just as quickly as I found freedom, I put the shackles back on for the sake of a relationship. Searching for something satisfying, she quickly became my God, and my new savior turned into an obsession. It didn't take too long for things to go bad, and 10 months later, I found myself back on that floor fighting the urge to hang from my banister with a rope around my neck. Then at the crossroads of sin and salvation, I saw the sun rise and I saw the sun raise his arm. Like a tree limb in sinking sand, I grabbed and put to death my flesh with the stake that was in his right hand. And with the one in his left, I left my old self on that cross. For it is no longer I who lives, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I live in the flesh, I now live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. 21 and run down, full of opinions and doctrine, I found myself burnt out with no voice to shout for the Father that brought me back to life. My cross was so heavy that I put it down instead of looking for help. I ate all the words that I had spoken and misspoken, the beliefs that were broken, and my heart had become oakened. I think it was when I was 21 when my mind was open to the idea that hope in Christ is something that stands through the storms and stammers without being torn. I'm worn, but I'm warmed because there's a war-torn world that we walk in that wants a love worth talking about. A love that does more than just stands on a street corner and shouts. But love didn't just act. I believe that it died for you and for me. If you don't believe the story or find it kind of boring, or if you're still exploring or you're torn, feeling forlorn, living in despair, or you really just don't care. An atheist agnostic think all religion's toxic, boxing up your feelings, tired of obnoxious Christians claiming to love God but hating everyone not like them. If you're like me, or like I was, or think that nothing I'm saying is making any sense at all, or just that all Christians are too smug, that's okay, I can relate, I felt all of those before. We're all on a different path, but I believe we bear the same image. 22, 47, 83, or 11, however old you are, we've all had different experiences. As for mine, I know that I've seen broken hearts mended, death's grip ended, and I could never pretend like I don't recommend it. If you're offended, I'm sorry, it's not what I intended. My goal is not conversion, just sharing my story about how my worries got taken away. My quarry of a heart softened into clay. There's no longer a hole, it's been filled. The chill is gone and I'm thrilled. I'm still a work in progress, and I'm the first to confess that I'm not perfect. I constantly transgress. But I'm trying my best to bring hope to the oppressed and arrest my tendency to regress. So for the first time, I'm fine being nothing more than a servant to mankind. Sent to serve and not to be served, I'll choose love or be damned. Now 22, and I aim to live my life in 3 simple ways: faith, hope, and love. And I've come to know that love is the cause of all good things. And my revelation couldn't have come at a better time. Because there's a war-torn world out there, searching for satisfaction or even just a fraction of a light. We've all got a story, a background, a life. Well, this is my story, at least some of it. My story is just starting. So day by day, we can all respond with love or fear. So I have a choice to make, and I stand right here today and say that I choose love.